The next thing to investigate is the water temp gauge. I need to replace it or find a bracket for the back of it. I broke it. I learned a lot. Let's just put it that way. So it wasn't working. So there is no master switch on this panel. It's hot right now. The starter's hot. Probably not the safest thing to do. But some of these gauges and instruments are on this instrument switch. The voltmeter is. This thing is. Actually, RPM gauge was working just fine yesterday. So, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'll have to think about that. EGTs aren't hooked up right now. That's where that was yesterday, the whole time I ran it. And then the trim indication is also on this. Actually, I think the trim might be wired directly to power. I'm not sure. So there was a ground wire. I could not find out. I could not figure out where it went, but it was teed into one of these grounds coming off this rectifier. So it wouldn't surprise me if I need to find a ground. So I'll check the ground on those gauges too. Let's see if anything changes when I flip the switch. See if there's any bumps. The trim light came on. I didn't see anything change with the those gauges. But the volt gauge changed. Says the battery's got 12 volts. I'm not seeing any blips or anything on those. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an extra temperature probe, so I don't have to take the one out of the engine. That's an extra one I have, and that's the temperature wire. I've got some boiling water here, 190 degrees. I'm just going to drop that thing in the, going to drop that wire. Drop the probe in the soup here. There it goes. The pan is hot. There we go. All right. So we've got the temperature probe down in 190 degrees. Hopefully that gauge is moving as we speak. Cooling off fast. It's already lost 5 degrees. Let's go see. And it doesn't appear to be working. Let's turn the switch on. All right, so I'm saying that we got a problem. Houston, we have a problem. Gauge is not working. So yesterday the RPM gauge was working. Again, I don't have the probes. I don't have the holes drilled for the EGT probes yet. That's definitely not gonna play. I did see it bounce full scale and back yesterday, so it's probably just a loose wire. So I'm gonna go chase that. All right, I've got the water temp gauge out. I've traced all the wires. This is hooked up correctly. There's continuity on the temperature sending wire. So if I turn this instrument switch on, it gets 12 volts, which is what is expected. So hopefully my test works now. Right, back at the pot, the water's hot, should be about 190, 194. Drop this in. it should move. If it doesn't move, maybe we'll, oh, I need to put a sender on it. Hold on. There's no sender. That's an old one. I was troubleshooting, well, before I changed the radiator before to this new one, I was having cooling problems, so I was testing all kinds of things, and one thing I did is buy another sender. So, all right, here's the moment of truth. Drop that in there. That should be moving, and it isn't. Wonder if I have the old water gauge somewhere. It is not moving, and I don't know why it wouldn't move. Okay. Well, oh, I'm not sure I have the switch on. It's always harder than it looks. Yeah, 0 volts. Okay, so here goes the switch. 12.27 volts. DC. Try it again. All right. The sender's in the soup. Gauge isn't moving. I'm saying the gauge is bad. I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to turn my ignition switches on just in case there's a circuit that I'm not aware of. It doesn't make sense that there would be, at least not to me. Yeah, that gauge should be flying up. Okay, so I've either got a bad sender, which is not likely, or I've got a bad gauge. And I'm saying based on the water temp yesterday while we were running the engine, and based on this today, I'm saying I've got a bad gauge. Look what I found. Found the old gauge. I like this one better anyways. So we're going to test it to see. So I think the S is the signal. The plus must be a positively charged wire, and the ground wire. These two aren't used, if I'm not mistaken. So we're gonna hook that up, see if it works. All right. So I've got these wires on backwards. I was just checking to see. Maybe that's how I blew up the instrument. That's ground. Switches are off. This one should be power. Electricity. I could test it. I'm going to put it on the plus sign. All right. And then signal. Now, I think it was the same thing. I think the gauge was working before, but I just wanted, before I tore apart the entire cooling system, because the radiator used to be in the cowl. I had a single radiator in the cowling, and most Kit Foxes and Avids that I've seen had cheek radiators, and then many of those people went to a belly radiator eventually. All right, so we should be hooked up. Let's see if we're getting the same indications. The truly skilled would just test it. Seems believing, but I just want to see if I'm getting consistent data. All right. Now I've got 0 volts AC, correction DC, 12.07. Okay, so that's good. All right, let's hook this. My water temp right now with my meat thermometer is 150, so that should register just fine on the gauge. And here goes the probe into the soup. Yeah, this makes me think that I've got a wiring problem. This is why we're doing all this. Nothing's changing. Well, I'm getting a little bit nervous about that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check those other wires. Got to trace those and figure out what's going on. All right, I might have this figured out now. Well, I'm not exactly sure what's wrong, but, I think I'm able to prove that gauge is working. So I got 200 degrees on the water, and then I've got the sender grounded. That was my problem before. If I put the sender in the water, and that thing should come up to about 200 if it's working. I'm saying it's not working. Okay, so now I'm going to switch gauges. I'm going to show you. I got to turn it on. Ah, man, how many times am I going to have to do this? All right, so now it's turned on. So the sender's in the water. The water is 190 right now, and there goes the temp sender. Should go up above 180. Give it a second. Yeah, I'd say that's not calibrated very well. I got 187 Fahrenheit on the meat thermometer. Showing 150 on the water gauge there. So I've got the old one. It appears to be a little bit better calibrated, so I'll go warm up the water, do one more test. Positive from the battery, and I think this comes from through the, I don't know where it comes from, ignition switch. I'd have to look at it. Ground, sender. All right, should be full left when it's depowered. And I'll go get the water. I've got hot water, 205 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to turn on the electricity to the gauge, where the gauge is. It's reading cold. And then I drop the sender into the to the hot water. The sender's grounded to the aircraft. You can see it warmed right up to, it should get almost up to 210. Well, maybe not. My meat thermometer is 199 now. And I would say that that's pretty dang close. So I'm really happy with that. I'm going to put that gauge back in the airplane. The one that's been in it was reading about 30 Fahrenheit low. So that's no bueno. Luckily, when we tore down the old 582, it was in excellent condition, so I don't think I overheated it. The pistons were still usable, the cylinders were still usable, everything looked great. So either the gauge was working and we were doing a good job keeping everything cool, or we just got lucky. I'm I'm back out here with hot water. The water is at 201 and dropping. That's 204. I'm dropping the I'm going to turn on the electrical. Should get normal indications. Full cold. Looks good. Drop the sender in. Should be increasing a whole bunch. So right now I'm at 197 on the meat thermometer. So we should be over 180 on the gauge. I'll give it a second to stabilize. $196, $195. Okay, now I'm going to take it out. It should start cooling off. Perfect. Interesting. The old gauge that I replaced when I was troubleshooting actually appears to be pretty accurate, and I like it the way it looks in there much better. So that's good for me.